What is up, you guys? It is your boy Phoenix Brenton here. In today's video, we are going to be talking about zombie changes in terms of the Easter eggs. So, exactly how does this work exactly? I mean, by talking about changes I would make if I was part of the development studio of Treyarch in terms of Easter eggs. Now, I could have included this, I guess, on my map video, but I thought it was better to separate them just because I feel like there is a bit of a difference between map and Easter egg. But that's just my personal opinion. But before we get into today's video, like and subscribe. You're on the road to getting to not 1,000 subscribers. I wish 700 subscribers. But anyways, enough said. Let's just get into the video. And let's start off with the first one. And make Easter eggs possible to complete on the map. So obviously, I know this is kind of a thing already, but what I mean by this is in terms of not it being completely impossible, which there have been some maps that made it nearly impossible to do. And then there's also just glitch where it's like, oh, it's impossible. What I want it to have is a nice polished product of an Easter egg where everybody can go hunting and stuff like that and have actual fun with it. And one thing I also want to do is make Easter eggs difficult, right? That's one thing as well, I really feel like is kind of lacking. Like, there's a difficulty difference, I feel like. Like, there are some points where, yeah, maybe you want a more simple on the side Easter egg. And then there's just points where it's like, why? Like, why are we having freaking just do 4 trials, as an example, as an Easter egg? Personally, I am tired of these mediocre Easter eggs. They're not fun and they're not great. And I feel like part of the reason as well of why I want to make Easter eggs possible to complete is because of one, for example, is the key step during Ashes. They're so hard to see, and it was so freaking frustrating to find those keys, especially in areas where it's not easy to really find them and have time to look for them, isn't it? But that's just my personal opinion on things. Obviously, you guys can disagree with me, yada yada yada. But it's just coming from me, all right? But obviously, I do think there should be a difference in terms of the Easter eggs, in terms of which map. Like, some maps I think should be very simple, while some maps could be very complicated, or maybe in between. And one thing in here that I didn't mention, by the way, well, I don't have on this list, but I feel like I should, is the factor that I think the Easter eggs, all of the things in here, should be found on the map and not specifically, oh, you have to look something up to figure it out. Like, for example, BO7 is a very great example of this. Like, for example, the blood trial step on Ashes, where you're collecting these like 6 objects, and then there's like these like writings on the wall where they aren't specifically found on the map. You're just supposed to look up a guide for it, which is such a stupid thing, by the way. I don't feel like that's a really smart way to do things. In my opinion, maybe you should be able to do a step or two to figure out the cipher of this code. That's kind of what I'm meaning. So, like, for example, what if there is something like banana, apple, honeydew, just saying that as an example, and the code of that is 473. You would figure out, oh, those are 473, just as an example, because that's what I feel like it should be. You should be able to find this stuff in the game itself and not just etc's. It's just stupid. I hate to break it to you, but it's kind of dumb, if you ask me. And then we have the boss fights, which the reason why I put it in here is because it's not very long, but it's also not very short either. We have, for example, not every map has a boss fight. Now, I know a lot of people might be a little upset with this one, but I feel like the reason why I want to do this is because I feel like it makes things more interesting when you actually go against a boss fight. Like, for example, there are maps that don't have boss fights but still work, like Origins. For example, that map doesn't really have a boss fight. Shadows of Evil technically doesn't have a boss fight, but the map still works. You can have maps where there just aren't boss fights, and they still work. I think that's something that I feel like the modern zombies needs right now is something like this. Not like you have to hold out in a specific area for 3 minutes. You gotta kill these HVTs. That's not what that means. What it's supposed to be is stuff that are, I think, in my opinion, more entertaining and more fun. And another boss fight thing as well is I wish for them to be more unique and different from each other. So the best example I could describe from this is partially the Richtofen boss fight, the Z-Rex, and the Guardian is my best example. All these boss fights feel the same. They don't feel different because it's just a bullet sponge enemy and boom, you just eventually kill it. That's what's kind of frustrating me the most. Is I don't like these enemies where it's just, oh, you just gotta shoot this guy a million times and yada yada yada. It's so terrible, and I hate that. Like, I'm tired of the factor that in some occasions it's just, oh, it's this, oh wait, it's that, and yada yada yada. It's not fun to me, in my opinion, talking about boss fights and it's just a bullet sponge. That's really it. So what do I mean by what I could do for this? Like, for example, let's just say as an example, let's have a boss fight where you're supposed to fight him, but not be able to hit him directly. So what do I mean by that? So there's a good example, and I just think of this because it's God of War Ragnarok. I played it. Is the Frozen Phantom boss, where you hit it to stun the enemy, but you don't necessarily kill the enemy. What you do is stun it to the point where you could actually do some actual damage to it. Because there's 3 pillars around the area, and you're supposed to destroy the pillars. And then you're actually able to destroy the enemy, therefore killing the enemy. I think that would be a very great way of changing things up and making things more interesting. And there's also one other thing as well that I will include, which I also didn't include on this list, is just making the boss fights more difficult. I do think they did a really good job with this game so far, with BO7. Some occasions I feel like they should be a little bit more easier, kind of like the Cloudferis boss fight, I think, is a great example of this, but that's my personal opinion on things. I do think that so far BO7 has done great, okay, not great, but like an okay job with the boss fights, but they could still address them to either be harder or easier, depending on where you look at it, really. That's just coming from me personally. But Anyways, guys, I really do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I think it might be a little more interesting. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. Peace.